Welcome to the Lemons and Pineapples podcast. I'm your host, Emma O'Brien, personal development coach, heart math practitioner, dog photographer, and entrepreneur. In this podcast, I share tools, strategies, and amazing guest interviews to help you improve your mindset and your well-being with a sprinkle of fun and probably some mention of dogs along the way. So without further ado, let's squeeze the day. Hi folks, welcome to episode 64 of the podcast with my special guest, Chelene Knight. We're going to be talking about something I feel very passionately about, which is saying no to protect your time and boundaries and how it can be done with love and compassion. First, a bit about Chelene. She's the author of 4 books, including Let It Go, Free Yourself from Old Beliefs, and Find a New Path to Joy. She's founder of her own literary studio, The Breathing Space Creative, through which she's launched the Thrive coaching program, where busy professionals can learn how to manage their energy and make space for all the things they're passionate about. Welcome to the podcast, Chelene.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Emma. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I can't say no is one of the top complaints I hear from overwhelmed coaching clients. We're not on video here, folks. Chelene is nodding her head. And my feeling is that it has got more to do with not feeling like you're able to say no for fear of disappointing, being rejected, and being disapproved of almost. So I am very curious if you can share a little bit more about how you came to coaching around this work of saying no.
Yes, I love this question because it allows me, one, to reflect, to go back and really look at where I started. And I think the saying no with love process showed itself to me at the most difficult time in my life. So I was going through a very deep and emotional burnout, and I didn't even know it. So I would say this happened around 2017, 2018-ish. I was doing a lot of things. I was running a literary magazine, working a day job, single mom at the time to boot. I was starting a literary festival, just doing a lot of things. And it was just weighing on me. And I started to watch myself. It was almost as if I stepped outside of myself and I took a look at what was going on. And I was doing these weird things, like I wasn't cooking meals anymore. Like I was preparing meals that I could take with me on the go. So I would only eat things that I could hold in my hand as I was moving and walking outside, which was wild to me because cooking was a huge part of my everyday. Like this was my life, my creativity, my passion, my outlet. And I watched that melt away. And that was incredibly emotional for me. So when I took a look at what was actually happening in my world, I slowed down and I asked myself, like, what's going on here? What do I really want for myself? And what do I really have control over? I think that was a really important question. So late 2017, 2018, I actually left my decently paying day job. I said goodbye to the day job. And I really trusted myself to build out these courses and offerings for writers. And I didn't have a big savings. I will also put that out there. But I also understood how I worked. And I liked the pressure of feeling like I needed to change the way I was working in order to make this really work. Like to make a living and to not be tired, I've really got to focus. So that really worked well for me. I let go of my day job. I built out a creative writing course to start and, kind of looked at the connections that I already had, shared this with other people. They helped me promote it, started to make money. I was okay, feeling good about it. Now I really had to look at all those other areas of my life where burnout was kind of festering. So the say no idea came to me from that place of burnout. But here's the thing that I had never done, that once I leaned a little bit into this is where I think everything started for me. I slowed down. That was it. And I asked myself, what do I want? How do I want to show up? How do I want to feel? And what do I really have control over? And once I started answering those questions, that was the start of the Say No with Love, like revolution. Totally transformed my life from that moment on.
It's amazing. I suspected when I asked you that question, there was going to be something like that. And it's something, it is something I completely relate to because I had an episode of burnout at the end of 2015. It
Mm,
floored me. And reflecting back on it, I was not nearly as articulate about it as it sounds like you were at the time, because it just not, I'd worked myself into a stupor. And with you, you had
mm,
a lot of pressure on a full-time job, a literary magazine, and looking after a child on your own. That's a lot of
yeah.
stuff. And I think it's really important to speak to this creepy little symptom of burnout, which is a lack of enthusiasm for things that you used to really enjoy. And this is
Mm,
where I think the crossover comes with that burnout can often be diagnosed as depression. Mine was, and it
yes.
wasn't depression. It was I needed to slow the hell down. But I didn't really know how to slow down. And I was afraid
Mm,
of if I say no to people, I'm going to lose business. I'm going to lose money. It's going to be
yes.
a problem. And that had been what fed the cycle for a decade before I got to the point of waking up and going, actually, I can't function anymore. So I have to do things very, very differently. And
Mm,
what I heard you say in there as well, which I think is so important, is this piece about what is fulfilling for me. And I love that you've touched on that because it's something that's come up in other conversations I've had on the podcast. And I think it's something we're often afraid to ask ourselves in case what's fulfilling isn't something we can do for a job. And then
mm,
by asking it, we find it, but we can't do anything with it. And then you sit with the frustration of it. Can you talk a little bit more about that for
yes.
me?
Yes, I would love to, because this is also, I think, what contributed to my burnout at the time is that I wasn't asking myself that question, like, what really gives me energy or what gives me joy? So I'd open up my email inbox and all of these opportunities were there. Chelene, can you do this workshop? Chelene, can you do this thing? Can you take on this consulting gig? And I'm like, that doesn't sound like me at all, but I'm going to go ahead and say yes because it's paying me. And that fear of not making enough money, I think, was guiding every single decision that I was making at the time. And I realized that because I was having zero fun. And I said,
Yeah.
how can I really just look at what gives me joy? So I did the simple thing. I pulled out my notebook and I made a list. What are all the things that give me joy or give me energy? And I surprised myself because, yes, writing was on that list because that is what I do. At my core, I am a writer. And I really focused on that. And I said, okay, well, here's what I know about the publishing industry. For most of us, we are not making a living directly from our books in the world. But what are the writing adjacent things that I could do that really get me excited? That's where the idea for the writing course came from, working with other writers to do, manuscript consults and things like that. That was energizing for me and that was exciting. So I really ran with that. And so again, looking at what was coming into my inbox and saying, okay, well, who makes the decisions here? I do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I can actually say no to these things, but I need to do it in a way where I am not burning bridges, because that's something that I thought about. If I say no to this, and publishing in Canada is quite small, maybe this person will never ask me to do something again. So I thought I need to learn how to build a language around saying no. And that's where the saying no with love part came into play. So I asked myself, okay, am I saying no to this forever? Is this something I don't want to do? Or is it just not the right time? And if it's not the right time, then I simply need to plant a seed. And I need to be open and honest about that. I'm going to say no right now, but I'm going to leave the door open for a future opportunity and maybe throw out some additional ideas. So let's say, for example, somebody got in touch with me and they said, Chelene, I want you to do or to offer this workshop on publishing. And maybe it wasn't that exciting to me. And I didn't have time, I didn't have energy. So my response might be, this sounds like something I could really get into in the future. Unfortunately, right now I just can't prioritize this project. However, here's some other ideas, some things I'm tinkering with. If you're interested in this, let's set up a call, in 8 weeks or whatever it happens to be. And I loved this idea of planting seeds because the more I did that, the more I would forget that I did that, which was super cool. So I'm planting these seeds for ideas and potential projects. Months later, these folks come back to me and say, hey, I wonder if now's a better time for you. And are you interested in this new project? So that was really exciting to me. And I think, again, I paid attention to my energy levels at that point. Things were shifting. Now I was still working the same amount, but the difference was I was focusing on the things that gave me a bit more energy, which opened up the playing field. Now I can call in more of my creative practices. I noticed that I was cooking a little bit more. I wasn't just making these wraps and walking around the streets with wraps in my head. So things really started to shift for me. So once I felt that spark of a shift, I kept running with it and I kept going. So again, it's a lot of work. I think it also requires a lot of self trust, which, I think is built up over time. But I really gave myself an opportunity to prove something to myself when I left my day job. I think that was the biggest shift for me. Now, I don't recommend that everyone go out
Yeah.
there and quit their day jobs,
Yeah.
but for me and my personality and for what pushes me and what drives me, that made absolute sense at the time.
Yeah, and I think it's just so many nuggets of wisdom in there, and I can relate. Alongside the coaching, I'm a photographer, and I think what contributed to my burnout resonates so much with what you've said, is that I wasn't feeling creatively fulfilled. And creative people who go into business doing their creative gift do it because they love the act of creating. And I loved photography, and I got to the point where I thought, I hate photography. I hate it. And what I hated about it was the fact that I had filled my schedule so much that I didn't have time to prep for a shoot. I didn't have time to research beforehand and come up with ideas of, I might try this new thing, or I might do this, or how about I suggest to the client we do this. And it was for me slowing down, freeing up time in the schedule, and making a different choice about where is it I want to take my career. Do I would just want to be the average photographer who's in the average price bracket, who people are like, yeah, well, she's affordable. I think somebody said to me one time, oh, you're actually very affordable. And I thought, I actually really don't like being labeled affordable. That doesn't jive for me at all. So how can I
Yeah.
shift that so I'm perceived as not affordable? And of course, a lot of what I had to do was shift my strategy around how I was running my business, in that I had to shift
Yeah.
pricing to offload some clients and free up time. I think that is so important for it's important for everybody, but for creative people, creativity needs a bit of time to breathe. And if you don't give it
Mm,
that, it sort of dies under a table somewhere. And
mm,
you need to feed the creativity. And I think
that's right.
you started to notice, and I started to notice, that I'm not feeding my creativity. I'm just going through the motions, and it made me so unhappy to my core. It was just an awful
Mm,
time. And it just took reshifting. What would I want to be doing instead? Where do I want to take this business? And how am I going to go about doing that? And for me, it wasn't something I could do on my own. I started working with a business coach because I needed
mm,
somebody else to help me with that. And that was instrumental in me making the changes. And it's been so fascinating. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I love that you said with your personality you just stopped the day job, because I think a lot of creative people would love to do that, but there's this safety net of, what if I can't make it work? And I
mm.
think sometimes if you rip the band-aid off, you have to find a way to make it work.
You have
You
to.
have to, you've got no choice. And again, I don't think I'd advise that for anybody unless you
That's
are
right.
really a person who is going to jump all in. But sometimes you have to, because it's a big motivator. But what I hear that you did, and this is a question I have for you, is even though you jumped all in, you didn't really compromise the vision by taking on any job that came in. Because I think that's where I had got to with this trap of, God, what if I don't make enough money? I have to take all of this work, and I
Mm,
hate most of it, but can't say no. Sounds like you didn't fall into that trap. So I'm curious as to how you balanced your need for earning money with creative
Mm,
integrity.
yes. You know what's really interesting about this, Emma, is that I found a way to weave the creativity into the business side of things. And I think that was a game changer for me. And again, it's like a simple energy assessment. I learned that what really lights me up, and it was surprising. I love building processes. Like, give me a task, and I'm going to build out a series of steps that I think need to happen efficiently for this process to happen. I'm like, this is joyful. Like, how weird is that to find, excitement and creativity inside of the boring back end of running a business? So I really loved that. And that gave me a lot of information, that gave me a lot of data. I was able to pull a lot of insights from that. So again, finding like stretching the creativity even further. How can I take this information? I know that I love to build things. And how can I use that to make extra money while I'm still kind of figuring out what this business even is? So I took that one step further and I started helping other people build out very simple processes or do exactly what you said, where, there are certain aspects of a client project that you didn't have time to do, like prepping for a call or building out like a shot list or whatever it might be that a photographer has to do. I started to build out processes for those things and then prioritize them in my calendar right alongside like client work or building out, an outline for my book. I'm really starting to look at what those processes could look like for me. But with the energy assessment I would do with myself over and over, I would ask myself, what can I automate? What can I eliminate? And what can I delegate based on what I know to be true about what gives me energy? And that was a game changer. So again, I realized that I loved like onboarding type stuff, admin work. It's so weird for me to realize that now. So I wanted to hold on to all of that work because it gave me energy. But what are the things that I just couldn't wrap my head around? So for example, podcasting. I have no idea how to edit audio. Please don't make me have to figure this out. So I knew I had to get someone to help me with that. I had to pay someone, but what is that giving me back if I'm having to pay someone to do that work, knowing it would take me 5 times as long and pulling all my hair out to figure it out? So again, just really realizing the value attached to eliminating tasks or offloading and then trying to do as much of the work that brings you joy as possible, because then it's going to increase your energy reserves in ways that you just did not predict. So that's really what happened for me. I think I did fall into the trap of doing the things I didn't want to do, but that was really early on and I just did not want to feel that way again. Like, I left the day job to have more control over my day and to be able to get closer and closer to this idea of freedom, right? What does freedom look like for me?
Mm.
Freedom for me is complete control over everything I'm doing in my day. And once I reach that, I'll know, right? Because my energy is going to be like out the roof and I'm just waiting, waiting for that day. But every day I feel like I'm getting closer and closer to that. And the more clarity that I experience around how I want to show up as an entrepreneur, I mean, again, just making decisions based on that energy instead of saying, well, I don't have time, because we all have 24 hours.
Yeah.
This is not ever going to change. And so we really have to look at how we're spending that time and how we can curate our days based on energy. And so the more that we look at this, the more data we're going to come out with, which is so important.
Yeah, I mean, so much great stuff in there, and I'm really intrigued. I also love strategy. I love coming up with strategies, and it's funny for someone who is, I think also even in my mind, I have this kind of stereotypical view of a creative person, that they're all over the show, and actually creative people generally can be very, very organized. So I'm very type A. I'm very
Mhm.
organized and I love strategy, and I love coaching people with strategy and then holding them accountable to implementing that strategy, because I'm incredibly
Yeah.
bossy. But it's just so, I think it's so cool that you've found your creative zone with the writing work you're doing, but you're also going, I
Mhm.
bloody love a bit of admin and I'm going to do that. But
Yes.
this bit, and this is something that was a game changer for me as well, was delegating stuff that it is of no value for me to do. So
Yes.
I got to a point of burnout because I was doing everything. At one point, I
Mm.
mean, I look at it now and I just think I must have been insane because I don't know how I managed. I was doing all of my photo editing, doing like
Wow.
10 photo shoots a week, and then doing in-person viewing appointments with clients for their photos, and then having everything printed, and then also hand delivering everything to them. I mean, it is no wonder I
Yeah.
collapsed in a heap on the floor. And then starting to look at, actually, do I need to, because I told myself, you know what, I need to be high touch with the clients. And again, this comes
Hmm.
down to this bit about saying no. I need to be high touch. I need to deliver,
Yeah.
even if it's 2 prints, I need to hand them off. And actually, no, I don't. What a better thing to do is have a courier deliver them, check in with the client. Everything okay? You're happy. Can be a phone call, quick
Mhm.
email, quick message. You're going to get instant feedback. Client has a touch point with you, but I haven't spent an hour driving to go and deliver stuff. But I think sometimes we actually, because I'm like listening to myself telling you this now, and I'm thinking, wow, what was I thinking? But sometimes we just don't know what we don't know because we've become so
Mhm.
used to doing things in a way that's chaotic, and but it kind of works. And I think the other thing
Mhm.
here is this fear for me as well was I don't have any money to pay somebody else to do stuff, so I need to do it myself. And
Yes.
it's about valuing your creative time, because when I freed up, well, it was probably quite a few hours a week of not fiddling around delivering things, I could book more photo shoots in at my newly increased
Yeah.
profitable prices. And then all of a sudden, you're actually making money with a good use of your time. And I like what you've said: automate, eliminate, delegate. One thing I
Mhm.
have done and has been really powerful is I've got a wonderful virtual assistant. She does all of my back end of my newsletters, my sales pages,
Yes.
everything else. I don't need to know how to use Lead Pages or MailChimp. It is of no use to me. I can pay somebody else to do it. And like you said, with the podcast editing, it would take me days and I just get annoyed. It doesn't light my fire. But my virtual assistant, who's super organized, switched on, and wonderful at doing great. And I think that's the thing as an entrepreneur is learning to put your time where it's of most valuable use. And like you
Mhm.
said, and I'm curious if you could talk a little bit more about it, of managing your energy. Could you speak a bit more to what that means to you?
Yeah. Yeah. I love all of this. And I think it's exactly that, understanding why, like, what are all the parts of your business that can only really be done by you? I think that's something to really look at as well. And I figured that out. I want to be front facing with clients. I want to be on calls and having this one-on-one approach. So I need to get rid of a lot of the things that don't allow me to do that. But when I think about energy assessments, I also think about going deep into the task and looking at what it is. Because, for example, if I told myself, I don't have time to cook anymore, there's something about it that I don't like anymore. I don't want to do this. What is it? Because this was something I actually used to love. And the deeper I go into it, I realized that it wasn't the cooking that was taking up my time and energy, because that was giving me energy. It was the task of going to the grocery store, picking out my ingredients, being in this crowded store, getting frustrated because I don't like crowded places. And so,
Mm-hmm.
how could I change that aspect of the task? Okay, easy enough. We have a little home delivery that we could call in for our groceries. It takes me like 10 minutes online, pick my items. Before you know it, your groceries are at your door. So, of course, there's a charge, right? I have to pay $10 for that delivery. But again, what is the time worth? How do I value the extra time and energy that I am getting back? And is what I think allowed for me to make these decisions. So I think value becomes a really important conversation, especially for creatives. How do we value that time to really just tinker with a project?
Yeah.
What would I pay for that? And so if I'm going to pay an admin assistant, I think when I first started out, I could only afford 5 hours a month, which really is nothing, but I'm like, it's something.
Yeah.
I've got to invest in myself early so that I can begin to see the value in that. That was one thing I'm so happy that I did. I don't even know where that advice came from, but I remember somebody telling me, invest in yourself early. And I just never forgot that. So again, being a single parent, leaving a day job, I think I had like $500 in my savings. Oh my gosh, this is scary to even think about. I still wanted to pay an assistant 5 hours per month to help me get started. And I think that boosted my confidence. And I said to myself, wow, this is really interesting. I think I can build something from this. And then since that day, the energy assessments became a regular part of my life. And so that's where the Say No with Love workshop came in, because one of the steps is we do an energy assessment. And I show folks how to actually work through that and how to make it a consistent practice. Because I think as we change as human beings, as we grow, as we experience the world, as our families evolve around us, these energy giving tasks or these energy kind of reserves, I think they change quite a bit. There's certain things that just fall off our radar or maybe don't give us energy anymore. So we have to be in constant communication with this process just to make sure. And I figured out that it's also similar to this idea of writer's block, where we think, oh, we're stuck, we have writer's block. And I'm like, that doesn't exist. If you are stuck, chances are there is something in your process that is no longer working. You have to go back in and evaluate that. So again, I find it really fun to be able to slow down and prioritize the time to look at my energy levels. So in my calendar, there's a time block. And I think right now it's once a month where it's like 2 hours. I'm assessing everything that I do. Can I still keep this task on? Why or why not? What is it giving me? Can I pass this task on? And I do this regularly so that I can check in with my energy levels and myself. And I think the one thing that often happens for people is that they've got this time block in their calendar, let's say, and it comes up and they look at it and think, I'm just going to skip over this. I have other things to do. So I think we have to pay attention to how we value it and build an emotional narrative around why that time block is in your calendar. What would your life look like if you could never assess your energy again? What would your life look like if your energy was always in check? Imagine that story so that when you see the time block in your calendar, you think, I absolutely have to make space for this.
So important. And what I hear from my slightly different perspective that I come into this is it's listening to when you're doing a task somatically, does it feel good? Does it not feel good? If we're in touch with our bodies, you'll find out if something's like for you going to the grocery store, and if you understand which bit of the task you really don't like, can you delegate it? Can you get rid of it? Or the other, automating obviously is great. The other great tip is if you really can't get rid of it, how can you make it better? So not just tolerable, how can you make it better? One of the things I really don't like doing is editing photos. I had an editor, and then she had a moment of, I don't want to do this anymore. And then as I've kind of scaled the photography down and scaled the coaching up, I do the editing myself. But I can put it off because I'll procrastinate and think, I hate this, I don't want to do it. Actually, it's never that bad when I get to it. It never takes as long as I think it's going to take. But I've now started putting on an audiobook to listen to whilst I'm editing. So I feel like that time is not dead time because I'm absorbing information and I'm learning things. And it also distracts me a bit from the monotony of it.
Yes. And
that's been a game changer. I wouldn't tell you that I look forward to going to do editing, but it's made it, I tend to procrastinate a lot less. It's amazing how many drawers suddenly need cleaning, What is a cupboard I need to sort out? So I think it's that understanding of why don't I like doing this and how can I change that? Because we shouldn't be having to force ourselves to do things that we really hate.
Yeah.
So how
It's
can you
mindset.
change it? It's mindset. And this advice you're giving about and doing an energy assessment around tasks,
Mhm.
so valuable, so helpful, because I think it's just a great way of looking at it and understanding yourself
Yes.
better.
For sure, because we're all different people. We're all different, we all operate in different ways. But I love this idea of adding a layer of creativity to the things you cannot change. I did this on Sunday where I have to clean my bathroom. I have to clean it, but how can I do so in a way, again, that brings on creativity? So I put on these headphones and I put on a music playlist, or I put on an album that I hadn't listened to since my early 20s. And that took me back to a place. So I was feeling myself. I was having fun. I was cleaning my bathroom. I'm creative because I'm listening to music
Mhm.
and I'm watching myself change before my own eyes. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this is how we take back control. It's our mindset, it's our approach, but it's also how we use this task of creativity and pull it into every single thing that we are doing. We then redefine what it means to be creative because it's not about that creative output or whatever is on the other side of creativity. It's how we move through it. And that really excites me as well.
I think that's great. It's just reshaping it, and how can everything you do become a creative task? And I've been listening to it's Stephen Kotler's, I think it's The Art of Impossible. I might be misquoting the title of that. And he's talking, just was listening this morning to the chapter about creativity whilst I was doing a workout, because I hate working out. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to listen to him whilst I'm forcing myself to do a workout. And he was talking about, creativity comes from sometimes doing a task that is quite mindless, like cleaning a bathroom or gardening or something, and you're keeping your immediate bit of brain and your hands busy, and you're just allowing a little bit of space for some ideas to come in. And he was saying, I've again, I should have jotted this down, but I'm completely off the cuff here with this. Somebody that he quotes in this book figured out that every time he had a shower, he could solve a problem he was having. So whenever he was at work and he was stuck with a problem, he would drive home and have a shower. And then, of course, it got to the point where he thought, I need to figure out what it is about showering that is actually allowing these ideas to come in, because I can't just keep going and having a shower every time I get stuck with a problem. And there was the fact that it's a kind of an active task where something is happening and your senses are a bit stimulated. So your
Mm.
bit of your brain, your left brain is a bit busy, and then the right brain can be like, oh, have you thought about it from this angle? And it's simple things that can help us be more creative, which I think is really exciting, actually.
Definitely. I like that. I connect to the idea of the shower thing. I used to think it was the water, but I don't think it is. I think it's exactly what you said, because big ideas come to me when I'm in the shower and I solve a
Mhm.
lot of problems, but also when I'm walking my dog.
Yes.
So yeah, it's interesting. Very
Yes.
interesting.
Active rest, I don't know that showers count as active rest, but active rest is so good for creativity. Like, say, walking the dog.
Mm.
For me, I love tinkering around with house plants and just messing around, repotting plants. I'll have an idea come up. Um, I think sometimes doing a bit of yoga as well is a great way
Yeah.
to have an idea come up. If you are able to meditate, and I have to be a bit careful with this because I'm like, Emma, you need to be being quiet and meditating, and then suddenly an idea will come. So I always have a notebook with me whilst I'm meditating in
Mhm.
case some little piece of inspiration comes on. I can write it down and go, thanks very much. Can we get back to the task at hand? But it might be a title for a blog post or an idea for a podcast or something. And it's, if we're open to these creative ideas coming through, we kind of got to be able to catch them, because it can be a bit fleeting, which is a little frustrating, but
Mm.
such is the nature of ideas.
That's right. That's right.
This has been a wonderful conversation. I've so enjoyed it. And
Yes.
thank you for sharing your expertise and your story, and so many powerful tools here for creative people who define themselves as creative people, for regular people, um,
Mhm.
to be able to really start to look differently at the way you're spending time, look differently at the tasks that you perhaps resist, and just come at it from a different angle. So I love everything you've shared here. And I know you have a workshop, your Say No with Love workshop. Could you talk a little bit more about what happens in that, how people can access that? Because I think for people listening, and I know this is going to resonate a lot for people who are like, I don't know how to set boundaries. Just share a bit more as where people could find that, please.
Yes, yes. The Say No with Love workshop is a seasonal offering, and it's a free workshop as well, so there's no fee. I enjoy delivering it. It is interactive. I walk everyone through my 7 steps, my 7-step process for how to say no with love. At the end of the workshop, you walk away with all the material you need to build out your seasonal Say No with Love map. And this map then becomes an intentional decision-making tool that you can use to filter through opportunities. Let's say something comes in your inbox and you're like, I don't know if I want to do this. You filter it through your Say No with Love map. I even show you how to build out your own Say No with Love language that makes sense for who you are and where you are in your life right now. And so you can sign up for that workshop. You can just go to my website, breathingsspacecreative.com. And you'll find me there. You'll find everything else that I do, and also links to my author happenings as well.
Amazing. I'm going to share the links in the show notes as well, so people can go find you and connect with you online and on socials. And again, thank you so very much for your time and being with me here today. It's been really a wonderful conversation.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I had a blast. So much fun.
Thank you for joining us, folks. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you've enjoyed it, please share with your friends and be sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review, especially if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. To find out more about my one-on-one coaching, please visit my website, which is emmaobriencoach.com. And remember, folks, when life gives you lemons, you can always choose another fruit. See you next time.